Kıymetli Ağızka Türk'ü kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters, Ahıska Turks, distinguished members of our Turks abroad and related communities presidency, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I begin my remarks, I would like to greet you with my most heartfelt feelings. It's a great pleasure to host you at the presidential complex, which is the home of the nation and is a martyr place. It has been 75 years since Ahıska Turks have been sent to an exile, and we have just seen the documentary, and we commemorate this day in great sorrow. In the presidential complex, we commemorate and we feel the suffering that was experienced 75 years ago. We host the very people who experienced it personally. I would like to thank and commemorate our friends and our elders who have taken up this cause and worked to commemorate the persecution of Ahıska Turks. We have elders who have personally experienced this suffering. We have among us people who have been longing for their homeland for 75 years. We have brothers and sisters from Ahıska. I have spent a lifetime away from Ahıska. If I die in a land away from you, it is my final will to my children. Recite the Quran next to my tomb and put some soil from Ahıska on my grave. Yes, this is the will of people from Ahıska to their children. They're looking for their homeland, our grandfathers and grandmothers who are longing for their homeland. As the Turkish president, I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming to this important event. I thank you on behalf of my nation and my brothers and sisters from Ahıska for honoring such an important event. We are in an atmosphere of emotions here. I would like to thank the Presidency of Turks Abroad and related communities, as well as World Union of Ahıska Turks, for bringing us together in such an important and emotional event. The 75th anniversary commemoration events were a very diverse group of events, and they helped voice the suffering of our Ahıska brothers and sisters in the national and international arena. Especially the younger generation coming together with the first-hand witnesses of the exile is very important. As the poet of our national anthem, late Mehmet Akif, states, we take our share from the past. A 5,000-year history does not give us a single lesson. History is usually told of as a repetition, but if we drew lessons from it, it wouldn't be repeated. Indeed, if we don't draw lessons from the past, that past would repeat itself. The only way to prevent history from repeating itself is to keep remembering what has been experienced and to help others remember it. Our children are the guarantors of our future, so they should be raised in an awareness of their history. They should know what their parents have suffered until they reached these comfortable days. As we have just seen the documentary in tears, 75 years ago, Ahıska Turks faced a lot of injustices. So it's a great lesson to all of us. The witnesses of those difficult days are still alive and they're among us. Visually and in written format, their witnesses' testimonies should be recorded. In different parts of the Turkish geography, we have young Ahıska youth. They must visit their ancestors' lands and they must experience the climate in that homeland. We must carry out projects in order to boost the culture, arts, music and folklore of Ahıska and to bring it to more people. We must strengthen our links with our roots, and we must not allow historical monuments to be destroyed and forgotten. We must renovate monuments and protect our shared cultural heritage so that we can give it as a gift to future generations. If we cannot protect them, they get destroyed or they get lost. We must know that this is also a piece from our memory being lost. Both the Presidency of Turks Abroad Agency and TİKA have certain projects being run in this regard. We must protect the heritage of Ahıska, and I appreciate such projects and such efforts. In the future, our relevant government agencies will work for archives and inventories. My distinguished brothers and sisters, 75 years ago, in Ahıska, some of the most embarrassing developments of recent history took place. In November 1944, around 100,000 Ahıska Turks were sent to an exile by Stalin. They were taken away from their homeland and distributed to four corners of the Soviet geography. This exile is described as follows by an Ahıska woman who lives in our country. She says, I was 10 years old. One morning, my mother took us to my grandfather's house. When I went there, everyone was weeping. It turns out we were going to be exiled, and that is what the preparations were about. In the afternoon, soldiers came. They took us out of the village. They, for a short while, told us that we would temporarily be dislocated to different places. They said we were drawn out of our homes so that we would be protected from the Germans, and they promised to us that we would come back to our homeland after the war was over. They filled us inside a wagon, as we have just seen. There were 8 families in our wagon, and every family had 5 to 6 members. We were given a little amount of food every day, which was only once a day. The wagons were of wood and they were frozen, and that's how we slept on the floor. We didn't have a toilet or water or anything to heat ourselves with. We ate the food that we had brought with us, and we survived for a month. As we have just seen in the documentary, this story belongs to tens of thousands of Ahıska Turks who have been taken away from their homes. This exile and persecution is unprecedented, and tens of thousands of Ahıskan brothers and sisters have lost their lives in hunger and in very dire circumstances. Whether they were women, children, or elderly, they were sent to camps to be employed there in the most harsh conditions. Thousands of Ahıska brothers and sisters died because of the cold weather and inhumane circumstances. On this occasion, once again, we should commemorate people who have died in exile or in different parts of the world, longing for their homeland. All of our brothers and sisters, we commemorate them in great respect and in God's blessings. May God bless their souls.
Sürgünü yaşayıp da bugün dünyanın 9 ayrı ülkesinde hayata tutunmaya çalışan büyüklerimize Allah'tan
we wish good health and a long life to our elders who are trying to hold on to life in different parts of the world, those who have survived the exile. 550,000 Ahıska Turks are maintaining their lives away from their country. Some of these brothers and sisters 75 years ago had to abandon their homes very suddenly, and they are struggling in great dignity and in their rights to go back to their homes. In order for justice to be served in line with international law and fairness, we are giving our support to this process. As you would notice, even a small incident that is experienced in the history of our country is distorted and turned into a campaign of defamation, but they are turning a blind eye to the persecution of Ahıska Turks because they don't know about justice or fairness or human values. That's not their cause, their issue. We know that they don't have such a concern because they give the Nobel Prize in Literature to a fascist who is rejecting the genocide that took place in Bosnia. A killer who killed tens of thousands of innocent people is being supported by or even portrayed positively by a person who is receiving a Nobel Prize. And it's a great shame that such a person is able to receive this prize. And this person is receiving the prize on 10th of December, which is the International Day of Human Rights. Islamophobia is spreading like an epidemic in Western countries. And rewarding those who long for a genocide, very frankly speaking, is paving the way for new murders and massacres and new genocides. Despite the bloody history, this person is being rewarded, and they are sharing the blame for the genocide that took place in Bosnia, because according to our values, if you are okay with persecution, then you are carrying out persecution yourself. In both literature and peace, Nobel Prize was previously awarded to similar people who had no contribution to global peace, and people who in fact had politicians who had the blood of some innocent people on their hands were rewarded by the same prize. Nobel is not rewarding people who really had a positive contribution, but rather is being used as a political tool. In such sensitive times, a person who is almost proud of his racism is being rewarded, and we don't find any good intention behind this. In my perspective, Nobel has entirely lost its positive reputation and has become politicized. It is now only making ideological decisions. In Europe, almost every day there are attacks being carried out towards mosques. Muslims are losing the security of their property and their lives each day, but such a reward will only further encourage people who are against humanity. anyone with reason and with a conscience should object to this award. Professor Aziz Sancar is one of the most prominent scientists that was raised by our country, and I'd like to thank him for his sensitivity on this issue. Of course, this scandal is not the first nor the last example of insensitivity towards the suffering of Muslims. From Hocalı to Ahıska, from the massacres in Arakan to violence in Syria, we have witnessed this multiple times over. When it comes to words, they claim to protect human rights, but when it comes to the rights of Muslims, they are deeply silent. They try to teach us about democracy and law, but dictators who shed the blood of tens of thousands of people and terror leaders are hosted by red carpets. They demand freedoms and justice for their own citizens, but people of Africa, Libya, Syria or Yemen, for those people, such rights are seen as a luxury. In our neighboring Syria and in other places, they support the most violent terror groups of the world. They don't feel embarrassed. For instance, YPG or PYD or PKK are terror groups which they do not abstain from supporting. Rights, justice, fairness, human rights, we know that these are not their concerns, their points. Despite all these facts, we follow the road shown to us by our faith and by our ancestors. So far, we haven't deviated from the line, from the direction of fairness and justice. We will not breach anyone else's rights, nor we will allow our own rights to be disregarded. Even if everyone is keeping their silence at every platform, we will continue defending the cause of Ahıska Turks. Of course, I must reiterate a fact here. Our brothers and sisters from Ahıska, their hearts have been wounded, and the only way to mitigate that wound, that suffering to a certain level, is to make it possible for all volunteering Ahıska people to go back to their homelands. The president of World Union of Ahıska Turks is having talks with us on such issues. For 75 years, some people have been longing to go back to their homeland, and we should not continue turning a deaf ear to their suffering. Of course, that various countries are facing challenges, and we are ready to give the support that we can. At every occasion, we raise this with our interlocutors. The purpose of Turkey is to eliminate an injustice that took place 75 years ago and to correct it without wasting any more time, because each day further boosts the victimhood. In a voluntary and safe way, Ahıska people want to go back to their homeland, and no one should be offended by this rightful request. Our country, based on friendship and goodwill, in a humane and legal way, our country is ready to do its part for a resolution of this matter. Hopefully, in the future, we will take up your cause as our own cause at the European Council as well as the Georgian authorities. Our relations with Georgia and our policies about Caucasus will always have this issue as an important part. Ahıska Turks experienced exiles, suffering and pain. But despite all of this, everywhere they went, they proved themselves with their hard work and their successes. They protected their languages, their religions, and their culture. For 75 years, they have carried out a struggle for justice, and they never abandoned legitimacy and law. They were always after embracing. They did not chase resentment, but rather coexisting in peace and harmony. From the US to Kazakhstan, in 9 different countries of the world, they have established lives for themselves, and they have been a symbol of hope and solidarity. As Turkey, both in our country and in other countries of the world, you have overcome every kind of challenge and have proven successful. And as a country, we're proud of your success story. New successes will be added to the existing success, and we're ready to do our part. No matter where they are, the situation of Ahıska Turks is being very closely monitored by us. When incidents started in Ukraine, we immediately communicated with the authorities of the country in order to bring our brothers and sisters who were being affected by the conflict to our country. Let me tell you, there were some in our country who were offended by this development. I told my colleagues, if they are offended by this step, that means we're in the right direction.
halinde
672 families have been brought to Erzincan and to Ahlat.
Bu kardeşlerimizle ilgili resmi kurumlarımız eğitim, konut, sağlık,
education, housing, health, and for their other needs, we are taking the required steps.
Türkiye'ye yerleşmiş olan Ağızkalı kardeşlerimizin
Our brothers and sisters, Ahıska Turks, some of them have settled in Turkey, and we're taking the necessary measures to eliminate their problems. In line with our projects, we offer scholarship to Ahıska youth so that they can pursue their education free of charge. We are carrying out some other projects in order to protect the history and the cultural heritage of Ahıska. We are closely following your problems and the challenges you face in going back to your homeland, and we are keeping this on the agenda at the level of our interlocutors. When we carry out official visits to countries where Ahıska people live in big population, we meet with the representatives of the Ahıska community. Hopefully, in the future as well, we'll continue supporting you and we'll continue always being behind you. Our wish is that, just like in the past decades, Ahıska Turks continue protecting their language, their religion, and their deep-rooted values, and pursue their cause of trying to go back to their homeland. Without unity, we cannot get fruits of our efforts. Please remember, when hearts beat together, no pressure or no force can beat them. Please do not allow anyone to create division among you. We should spend our energy on pursuing our cause, on the success of our cause, rather than internal conflicts. No matter in which part of the world, you must always keep your links strong with our country. As we pursue our struggle, we do not deviate from democracy, and we do not fall to the traps of certain circles who have negative intentions. You may face challenges in repatriation, but in order to solve those problems and to keep the interest of the international community alive, we must work hand in hand. As our valued, beloved Prophet says, altogether we are like the organs of a body. May God be with us. Once again, I ask you to keep your hope high and to never give in to pessimism. As I conclude my remarks in such feelings, I would like to end on this beautiful poem, which is full of hope and emotions. Ahıska, you are the fire burning within. You are my eternal homeland. I have lived for so many years in the hope of coming back to you. Hope is my unbeatable, undefeatable army. Ahıska, you are a destroyed Turkish land. You are full of tears in your eyes. You are like a mother wounded because she's been separated from her children. But Ahıska, keep your hope high, and you will see your golden days one day. Wait in great patience for your children to come back. Give back hope to your high mountains. When we gather our soldiers under a single flag, we will enlighten our homes and our fires will burn again.
Mevla, 75 yıldır vatan hasretiyle yüreği yanan kardeşlerimin
My brothers and sisters have been longing for their homeland for 75 years, and may God end their longing. I send my greetings to my Ahıska brothers and sisters who live on different corners of the world. Once again, I wish God's blessings on our martyrs, and I commemorate their holy memory. Once again, I thank the organizations who brought us together in this event, and I wish us an auspicious event once again, and I thank you for honoring the home of the nation. Thank you. Thank you, and may God protect you. Be well.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımız, hitaplarınız için çok teşekkür ediyoruz efendim. Zatı devletlerini yüksek müsaadeleriyle bir müddet